So the unique thing about me is that I'm 35 years old and I've been living with HIV for all but 6 weeks of my life. My father was active duty Navy and I'm actually a twin. I'm living with HIV, my twin is not. We were born 12 weeks early, and at that time in the mid-80s, you needed to take a lot of lab work, and because they took labs so often, we were both anemic, and so we required blood transfusions at 6 weeks old. But because I was transported first to San Francisco and she was remaining in San Jose, we both got blood transfusions in basically two different cities, but I ended up with HIV and she did not. So when we look at the history of my own medical history, it very much overlaps with the history of HIV in the United States. When Magic Johnson made his announcement, I was diagnosed about a month later, and that was the only association I had with it, was that Magic Johnson had it. So I honestly believed that Magic Johnson and I were related, and I would go around and tell my classmates that, and they looked at me very confused. And you know, at 8, you don't know what HIV is, you just know what you hear on TV. And I said, well, Magic and I both have HIV. And they don't know either, but young kids can't keep secrets. So they go and they tell their parents that somebody at their school is living with HIV. And parents at that time just didn't want me to go to school with their kids. But thankfully it was against state law to discriminate against children living with HIV. I think around the time that I was 16 is like when I had access to internet. So the internet was such a huge learning experience, and it really shortened the distance between people. I didn't meet anyone with HIV until I was 17, despite having it my entire life. My childhood, I was told that I was going to die. And then when I didn't, and I did graduate high school, it was kind of this unexpected adulthood. What do I do now? I guess I'll go to college. It wasn't the same as for a lot of people that it's expected for you to go to college. For me, it was, okay, now that I've survived into adulthood, I need to learn, 1, how to manage this, 2, how am I going to provide for myself. So it was really going to school, and everything was around my medical care and getting health insurance and just making sure that I could take care of myself. Health insurance plans, particularly student health insurance plans, don't have the kind of pharmacy cap that would accommodate the cost of having HIV drugs, and I really just didn't know what other programs were out there to help pay for those drugs. I know that there are programs now, but at the time, the student health insurance only had a $1,000 pharmacy cap, and when your medications are at least $2,500 a month, I just didn't really know how to make that work. And now I heard, because of student advocates who were living with chronic illnesses, now the pharmacy cap is $100,000. So that's, to have that insurance coverage for medications makes access a lot easier and makes it easier for you to get through your college or graduate school experience and to help set you up for success. Actually, when I finished my coursework was when the first person I knew living with HIV had died. So he died the same semester that I finished my coursework, and he was 31 and I was 25. And that was I had never been to a family funeral. This is my first experience with death. I saw him about 3 weeks before he died. He lived in Newark, but he used to live in Atlanta. And that was just kind of very shocking for me. That shook me when he died, because it kind of set me back in terms of, I had gotten used to I'm going to have this normal lifespan. But when he died, I started to think, am I spending too much time on my academic career when I should be out living life? One of the great things about having, access to treatment is that, you do get to have a somewhat normal life. You wouldn't be able to tell that I have HIV just by looking at me. It would be something that I would have to mention. But again, here comes these challenging, long-held beliefs. So people would think that people living with HIV are supposed to look sick. So they think that because I don't look sick, it must not be a problem for me. But they don't realize all the work that has had to go into, making sure I have access to medication, running up student loans, and, they don't appreciate that. And because they only see what they see, that's where you get kind of the common perception that youth don't think that HIV is a big deal because they think all you have to do is take a medication and then you're done with it. But they don't really understand like all the economics that go into that, and they don't understand what HIV stigma looks like. The fact that we're still placing labels on people living with HIV, that they deserved it, that they're dirty. I mean, the South is a huge, still kind of, the South really reminds me of the early 90s. I feel like a lot of the attitudes here are still kind of stuck in that realm, and there's still this visceral reaction to when somebody says you're HIV positive. Like, I get a lot of I'm sorries, and I'm thinking, well, what are you sorry for? That I lived? Because I'm not sorry I lived. It's a virus, but because of the way that it's transmitted, we've brought all this other stuff into it. But at the core, it's a virus. We should treat it as such.